Right, so that was our usual housekeeping video. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to talk about tools that can be used for investors, especially lead investors in Europe, in order to facilitate and streamline their investments, mostly in startup companies, so investment syndicates. I have the honor here of being together with three quite experienced investors. All of them I would call lead investors, given their portfolios. And this is what we're going to talk about. And I'll let the introduction to the gentlemen themselves. We have here Marius Istrate from TechAngels, Mircea Vadan from Transylvania Angels Networks, and Nilanjay Ghura, who is an active angel investor. Starting with you for a short intro, Marius, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. I lead TechAngels Romania, which is, I think, the veteran angel group in the country, created more than 12 years ago, having invested as a group of 150 or so members now, having invested 46 million euro over the past 12 years in roughly somewhere between 250 and 300 startups, mainly in Romania, but also in the surrounding countries. So Bulgaria, Moldova, Hungary, Croatia, a little bit, mostly in Romania, though. And as a background myself, software engineer, then tech executive for a number of years, worked in a company called UiPath during its growth phase. And that's where I guess the windfall of that is going into angel investment right now.
Awesome. Thank you. Mircea, please.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here. So I started being active in the startup ecosystem more than 10 years ago as a startup founder, but after raising money, failing the startup, I decided to jump into the ecosystem. I built a couple of organizations like accelerators, like communities of startups and NGOs. And at the same time, in parallel, I realized that here in my hometown in Cluj, we don't have enough investment, enough capital to invest in startups. So I created together with a couple of my colleagues, I met, for example, Transylvania Angels Network, which is a group of angel investors. Now we're more than 100 people, members invested in 30 startups, and we usually do syndicates. We did syndicates in Romania, but we also have in UK, in Netherlands Incorporated, and in US as well, in various ticket size, of course. And we have a couple of co-investments with TechAngels as well. And with the other angel groups in the country, we get along quite well and sharing opportunities where we see that we can have greater power together. My last investment was in the drone space in a company called BraveX Aero, which is doing surveillance monitoring drones here in Romania. So quite excited about that. And now I'm as well working on a co-investment fund together with a couple of other colleagues.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And the third in line, Nilanjay, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nilanjay Ghura, and I have been working with startups for almost my entire career. I think it's 8+ years now. I've mainly been a sales and RevOps guy, helping them make money. And it was like 2 years ago when I started my angel investment journey in partnership with Startup Wise Guys. It's a B2B accelerator program based out of Europe only. And I was a venture partner, and I initially launched a public syndicate called Wise Angels Network, then shifted to private syndicate because on the demand of the investors that were happy to connect with me. So far, since last 2 years, we have deployed 200,000 euros in the European startups. We have invested in multiple verticals. So we have invested in VR, we have invested in SaaS, we have invested in cybersecurity. And luckily, I got a chance to invest in let's say, at a hardware company, which is into, let's say, AI chips, very small. This was for the latest investment. And mainly we operate a model where we try to invest on the follow-on rounds with the VC. So over the years, I have developed a network of venture capital firms, which allow me to invest in their follow-on rounds, and they send me invitation, helping me to ensure that I don't have to spend a lot of time in due diligence, saving my costs so that I can invest more money into the startup with them.
Brilliant. So we have all three speakers introduce themselves, or all three panel participants. As you can see already, quite some experience we have today on the table, quite a lot of points to tackle, but let me set the stage a bit by saying I'm doing this also for a couple of years now, and it's interesting to see how the European ecosystem evolves. I might have a bit of a Western European viewpoint, whereas Marius and Mircea will have a bit of an Eastern European. Nilanjay, Western as well as Indian, so that's going to be an interesting one. I mean, what you generally see is that traditionally a lot of business angels made money in the old economy, then invested in startups, did it via their own person or their own legal entity, but gradually the whole ecosystem evolved and became what is already has been done in America for the last, whatever, 15 plus years. And you have more properly and professionally structured investment syndicates, SPV structures, and so on and so forth. And this is what this whole webinar is going to be about. And the first bullet point I want to tackle, and I'm addressing this to you, Mircea, what are investment syndicates and why are they actually useful? Why are they used?
Yeah, so the syndicates, basically, it's a group of people, angel investors, who have one leader usually, and they put all the money in one bucket and in a SPV, we call it, special purpose vehicle, which invest in a specific startup. And the point of having a syndicate is easing the process of investment. And then in the background, in the syndicate, basically the amounts that each of us puts can be different, but the startup is ensured to have more capital access. And on the other side, time they deal only with the leader of the syndicate, because otherwise having to deal with 20 people is kind of a hard thing to do, and communicating similar information. That's why we create the syndicates. It's a way to make it more efficient and easier for the startup. I've been in startups as investor in which we did not have a syndicate, and it became quite complicated to manage 20, 30 shareholders. So you can imagine the syndicate is much easier, a little bit tougher for the angels because they need to synchronize all together. But the leader has usually this role, and it's also rewarded by the others, usually in the mean of a carry fee most of the times that he gets at the exit coming from the. So this is the way to organize ourselves. I think similar to TechAngels, to Transylvania Angels Network, Growth Channel, Brava as well. We come together as networks, we listen to the pitch, and then we jump all together if there is enough interest, because not everyone might be interested. So maybe it's just 5, 10, 20 people. We converge in a syndicate, and this can happen in a couple of weeks or a couple of months, depending on various variables.
And I would add, Mircea, that it has another huge advantage as a syndicate, is that as an angel, there's no longer a minimum ticket. If you were to enter the cap table directly, typically the startup would say, hey, I expect a minimum 25, maybe 50,000, maybe 100,000 commitment, which for some angels might be fine, but for others, it might not be. At least in our group, there are people who are not willing to commit 5-figure or 6-figure sums. But in the syndicate, they can participate with an amount that is comfortable for them.
Yeah, same for us, and especially in the moment when you're not sure that you want to play the game, but you want to test it. So putting a couple of €1,000 is quite satisfying. And yeah, we did many syndicates in the past. I participated in 16, 17 of them. I led around 7, 8, and for SeedBlink there were 4 or 5 of them, in which 2 of them I led in collaboration with SeedBlink as a vehicle.
Yeah, I think that's an important point you touched upon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're getting into this game of investing in startups, early stage companies, I mean, you need to learn your lessons somehow, and what best way to do it via a mentor who is basically leading around and you're just following on and see how that actually works. I mean, that's what we quite often see, and that there's nothing wrong with being a follower in a syndicate, not far from it. And that's what you said as well, Mircea. Sometimes the lead investor wants some compensation, i.e. some carry, and I think it's perfectly reasonable to ask for that, and that's what we see quite often. Thanks. I forgot to mention one thing for the audience. We have a Q&A button below. You can ask questions whenever you want. We'll do like half an hour interaction between the 4 of us, and then we open the floor to questions and answer your questions in the Q&A. The second point I wanted to discuss is actually the evolving role of lead investors leading those syndicates that we talked about, in particularly in Europe, because Nilanjay might give us an international view on this topic, but in Europe, it's quite a recent thing to see. It's emerging, it's manifesting, but we are not as advanced as always as the US. And I want to address the second question to you, Marius, please.
Yeah, it's an important topic for Europe because we have generational wealth in Europe. I think more than in the United States. Just the amount of money that on paper, in theory, should be invested in technology is significant. But we do lack that leadership. I find that it's important in Europe for people who are, interested in the phenomenon to participate as we call them super angels in some capacity. Lead the syndicates as much as we don't want this to be a herd phenomenon, right? It is important to have leadership and to build conviction, and then to take that conviction that you as a leader have and share that conviction with other potential investors. I think an important piece of what leaders of syndicates should do is also identify key areas of expertise that should be in the syndicate, because it's about pooling the money. As Mircea said, it's also about pooling the expertise. Like if I invest in startup X that maybe touches the subject of space tech, I'm just choosing one example, then maybe I'd like to bring into the syndicate 2 or 3 or maybe 4 investors that I know in my networks, European networks, that have experience in that area. So I think for all of these reasons, leadership is important. There's nothing wrong, I think, for an investor to say, "Hey, I got pinged by somebody who has this sort of profile of a super angel to maybe join a syndicate for my expertise." And also, of course, there's then the responsibility of sharing information with the rest of the investors, of representing the group in the relationship with the startup. But that's all. I mean, that's something you'd be doing if you'd be investing all that money alone, right? You'd be doing it anyway if you put up all the money yourself. If you've shared the risk with others, then it's only natural that you represent the group in the relationship with the startup.
Yeah, that's a valid point. And a small tangent and anecdote from myself. When I was attending during my years in Germany, a couple of those business angel networks, I was basically in the middle part of Germany, Frankfurt. One of the senior angels told me once, if you ever want to invest in any of these startups, just make sure one thing, that one of your co-investors is a lawyer. And the reason why he said that is because back in the day, we didn't have these SPV structures or the nominee that SeedBlink have, these streamlined kind of things. So you needed to do the legal stuff, the admin work somehow. It's annoying. And he said, make sure, whether he understands the business or not, make sure there's a lawyer in there. So I found that quite interesting.
Ronald, I have to be honest with everyone. I still encourage this to this day. I think it's great to have somebody with legal expertise and who's passionate about technology in any syndicate, because truth be told, as investors, we are often called upon when there's some issue, some problem, maybe some conflict within the company, to help advise, to help navigate the difficulty. I find that legal expertise is always welcome. Maybe not always necessary, but it's always welcome.
I think it's like a safeguard to have. For example, when I was hunting for investors for the syndicate, I especially launched a campaign to find lawyers to join the syndicate. That, hey, I need someone who can be there with me. Don't charge me a lot of money to help me with the legal matters whenever I'm stuck. So I was able to find, and then when I always say that, hey, we do have a lawyer on board. So if we get, messed up somewhere in the journey, he can help us out because he has the knowledge and the experience.
So we conclude, it's always good to have a doctor on board of an aircraft, and it's always good to have a lawyer in a syndicate of investors. Yeah. Okay, got me to the next point, and addressing to you, Nilanjay, now, your personal experience leading investment syndicates across Europe or globally, wherever you did it.
Sure. Mainly, I started with Europe, so I can share with that. So initially, when I started 2 years ago, the concept of the syndicates and the angel investment was really growing. So this was one of the reasons that got me excited to launch my own syndicate. But the challenge that I faced mainly was that I had the syndicate, I had the investors looking for it, but the major challenge was finding the startup flow, because now in Europe you have these multiple startups spread across different countries, and each country has their own legal problems. So even let's say you find a good startup, let's say in Spain, or if you find a good startup in Germany, the legal procedures to invest are totally different. And in order to tackle them, you need someone to actually knowledgeable about those things. So that's why I said the lawyer comes into handy, the person who actually knows the multiple laws about the different regions and can help us out. So that was the first important factor for me, that when I started hunting for startups and I actually found a startup to invest in, I faced this legal trouble as to how to invest properly without, facing any legal challenges. So I found the investor and did that. The second thing across, let's say, Europe is, and this is from a global perspective as well, that in order to get or make your syndicate a little bit bigger, what's super important is that you build trust within the existing members. So when I started, we were just 4 member people, including me, in the first year. And then when I started providing good due diligence on my startups, initially we only invested in 1 startup during the first year, but my due diligence across the 50 startups that I provided was really, let's say, attracted by the investors, right? So they were like, okay, this makes sense, but we are not ready to invest. But then I also requested them to maybe refer to other people who can join the syndicate. And when I did that, after 1 year, people started referring to other people. I started meeting them because of a video call. They were interested and knowing more. And as the word of mouth spread, people started liking to what I was sharing. So even though some people didn't join the syndicate, they were still happy to have my due diligence and use it for themselves and maybe invest directly into the startup for the 5-figure or the 6-figure they wanted. So this is what I learned, that instead of me going to every angel community meeting or every, let's say, startup meeting, I said, okay, why not I just every quarter I go and try to talk to each investor that I have in my syndicate, saying that, hey, it's been a while, let's catch up. I catch up with them over a video call, or if I'm nearby, I go and grab a coffee with them. And I tell them that, hey, we are trying to add some more people in specific domains. So for me, it's super important that if I add a new angel investor, they come with a specific domain that can contribute to the startup as well. So I specifically do this each quarter. I meet all the investors that I have, not all, but most of them. And I try to see that, hey, do you have someone who can have expertise in this field and maybe would be interested in joining? Maybe for them, the first investment can be 0 minimum restriction. You can invest maybe €1 if you want, but you can join that cap. But for me, what's super important is building a long-term relationship with them so that they can contribute to the startup and wherever they are facing problems. A great example this is that there was a marketplace startup that we invested in. And now initially, sadly, the marketplace is shutting down, but they are trying to sell the marketplace to one of the competitors, right? Now, this guy belonged to the same industry who invested alongside with me, and I asked for his help, and he said, okay, let me go and take care of the sales process. And eventually, hopefully in the next 3 months, the sale process will happen, and whatever money we invested, we will at least, we're going to lose 20% on that, but get the 80% back so that I can pay back to the investor. So this is super important, that instead of having a lot of investors inside the syndicates, try to be very strategic. It's okay, your syndicate can be small. Mine only consists of 10 people who regularly invest with me. But then again, from time to time, some people join and they go back, they join again. But it's super important to build relationship with all of them so that they have faith in you that whatever I'm bringing, I'm happy to bet my money on your research versus the general perspective. So this is something that I've learned in my 2+ years of syndicate running so far.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. At the end of the day, you want to have domain expertise, firstly, in assessing a business, and secondly, also, if you're actively mentoring or helping the startups, then you want to know what you're talking about. I mean, there's nothing wrong in investing in industries you like and you don't know a lot about it, but make sure to have somebody who does understand it. I mean, that's the same for the whole venture capital industry, I would say.
And there's something else that Nilanjay touched upon that I think is important. You can have this model, which I think well done, that you're managing to cultivate that relationship and have that trust. What I love about, for example, working with SeedBlink is that you also have the flexibility to be a little bit more loose if you want to. Like, I can have special purpose vehicles where we bring together. Maybe I bring in some people who I've met for the first time, and we're only getting together for this opportunity. So I think one of the advantages that you have, think of it as like a scale, right? You can choose once you have an SPV like this set up, the level of trust that you need to establish with all the investors, and how loose you'd like the group to be. Which, for example, in our case at TechAngels and with some of the larger networks in Europe, is quite important. If you have hundreds of members, you want to allow some of them in certain moments of their lives when they're willing to invest to be able to participate. And on the opposite, end of the scale, what Nilanjay was describing, which I think is great, is building that trust and a relationship with a number of individuals that you know you're going to go a long way with.
Yeah, very good. So coming to our next point, common syndication pitfalls and the need for state-of-the-art tools. Anybody wants to raise their hand and go first?
Okay.
I can share one.
Okay,
Sure,
Mircea,
go
please.
Yeah, I think it's important to do the taxes scenario because different SPVs have different taxation in different jurisdictions, and you need to map that because that influences all the fees and taxes. They are influencing the return of investment. And I've seen this happening. Imagine, okay, we have 4x outcome, and then we realize that's actually less because we didn't take in factoring the taxes. So I think this is important to keep in mind all the administrative process to be mapped. So when we go with an off proposal to the angel investors and the final proposal, okay, this is the deal, these are the conditions. We also do the scenarios for taxes on couple of exit scenarios with the purpose to be transparent on what to expect. So that's a pitfall. And I'll let my colleagues add, and maybe I'll come back a little bit later with some others.
True. I mean, if I can add on this, so basically, state of the art too. So number one thing about Syndicate is that they're always crash crunch, right? So they don't have money to invest in tools because their money depends upon the investors, because they're not charging any management fees, right? So you have to be very careful as to how you want to manage the tools. For example, if you're really, let's say, we have these multiple regional based angel networks like, Litban and the Estonian Angel Network, they all are quite big. So they are able to get some money from the subscription fees and stuff to manage the tools. But let's say a syndicate like mine, which is very private based and we focus on very limited capabilities, we try to avoid the tools cost unless it is necessary, but definitely we try to pay a lot of attention towards the legal fees, the jurisdiction where we are. So for example, one thing that we found very useful is that we can create SPVs very easily if we are an Estonian e-resident, right? So in Estonia, everything is digital. The cost of setting up things is very super simple. So over the last 1 year, I got accepted into the Estonian e-residency, and I was able to build SPVs easily for my, let's say, investors to invest in, and there was zero hassle, like, digital signatures. I lead the SPV. We have the mutual contract between entire SPV investors saying that, hey, this is what's going to happen in case of, dissolution. This is what's going to happen in case something happens to me, how your money will be treated and stuff. So there was no need for tool there, but the lawyer guy who is the investor with us was quite helpful. So he might have charged a little fees from each investor, but each investor agreed that, okay, I'm happy to cover the cost of this thing as long as, we are legally protected. So I think in terms of legality, if you go and tell investors that this is a legal cost to protect you as an investor, they're happy to invest a little bit. But let's say you say that, hey, I want to go and purchase a tool to make my life easier as a lead investor, then I face a lot of trouble there in finding tools. So like in the past, we tried another syndicate tool and I was happy using it. But then again, the investor said, okay, we can't bear the cost of it because once again, we are not investing a big check size, right? We are investing a little bit of money, and maybe in the future when we are big or have the, let's say, capability to invest 3-figure in a single check per investor, then maybe we can think of that thing. But depending upon the level of the syndicate, it all depends upon how your investors want to build the syndicate with you, right? You as a lead investor are the confidence level that, okay, whatever you're going to bring, we are happy to do that. But when it comes to tools and stuff, it becomes a bit difficult to justify that how this tool is going to help every one of them as a syndicate.
But can I linger on that point a bit? Because now we're talking about tools that you might use in order to sort of manage investors, manage portfolios, whatever. I think the way I approached this point was more like there is now solutions in the market that allow you to basically buy an SPV from scratch, buy a trustee from scratch, buy a nominee from scratch. Don't need to do it yourself with a lawyer. So what's your experience in that respect, Nilanjay? Have you used Estonian SPVs? Have you used trustees in other jurisdictions? Have you done it as private individuals? Do you have your own legal entities? How did you do that?
So initially, what we did was that before the e-residency thing, I was using a UK SPV tool. I'm not going to say the name because it's a competitor. So I used them. but their fees was quite, because it was a subscription based, their fees was quite slightly expensive. But then again, they faced some legal trouble from the UK authorities, and then the SPV structure got hampered, right? So we did one investment from that. And then we said, okay, let's try to find an alternative, because when I saw the email that, okay, the UK authorities are poking into this SPV functionality, then it was a red sign, and I thought, okay, let's try to find an alternative. So that's how we went to the, let's say, Estonian e-residency. I applied for it saying that, hey, I want to create syndicates. This was practically my application, that I want to create syndicates in Estonia to invest in startups, and they accepted my application. And then because I have the e-residency, I can easily create SPVs or basically one-time companies, and I can have the foreign investors in them, right? So basically, I need to be, let's say, a legal resident. So if I'm a digital resident of Estonia, I can build a company, and then I can invite the foreign investors to be part of that SPV. So it is a super simple task. I just need to submit everyone's, what do you call, legal contracts that yes, they are willingly investing in the company, and they do the paperwork, and every paperwork is digital. So you don't have to manually sign and then post the stuff to Estonia. It's all digital. And within, I think, 1 to 2 weeks, the SPV gets ready. And even for this thing, just on a safer side, I use a company, or not a company, but let's say a platform based out of Estonia. It's a startup which actually helps you set up SPVs in Estonia. So, I use them as a backup in case, my other SPV structure might fail, the manual side fail, but I can use their SPV structuring to, build the SPV quickly and get things sorted.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Brings us pretty much to our next point, that is the benefit of syndicates in general and the nominee structure in particular. I don't want to focus too much on the nominee. Obviously, SeedBlink uses a nominee structure, which is a fancy version of a trustee at the end of the day. We have used a lot of SPVs in the past. Marius knows that in Romania, but it's quite a tedious, lengthy, and also expensive process. And at a certain point in time, we switched to trustee / now nominee, which is essentially holding the shares on behalf of the investors. So economic ownership, legally split with respect to legal ownership. So the investors are essentially as if they were on the cap table from a fiscal viewpoint, and so on and so forth. So it's basically a shell company where money flows through and money flows back one day, hopefully. Mircea, Marius, what are your experiences with SPV trustees, nominees, and whatever is out there?
I mean, I would argue that you want things to run as smoothly as possible, and to Mircea's point earlier, you want them to be as transparent as possible, as clear as possible from a fiscal standpoint. And I think the important point to make here, specifically about syndicates in Europe, is there are moments when the friendliest place to set up maybe an investment SPV is Estonia. Then France catches up with some legislation that makes it really friendly. Then Germany catches up with some, but it's like a catch-22. It's a constant. It's exhausting, honestly, to survey 27 countries in the European Union, and then at different points decide, which one is friendlier or has done something that's attractive to be able to invest through vehicles in that country. But from this regard, I think this structure that you're talking about, the nominee structure, I think is a lot more straightforward. It's a lot easier to understand. Fiscally, it respects the laws of whatever fiscal, wherever you might have your fiscal residency, and I think that's important. And there's one more aspect to it that maybe is not obvious, but I'd like to highlight here. It reflects quite accurately that the decision to invest is made by the individual, which is the way it should be in the case of business angels. The lead angel is somebody who represents the group in the relationship with the startup, but is not an asset manager in the classic sense of the word. In terms of money management, the lead investor is responsible normally for their own money, and every other business angel in the syndicate has agreed normally to that investment decision, right? And I think that the nominee structure reflects this reality of business angel investment really well, that the decision needs to be an individual one, where the person making the investment is both fiscally responsible and legally able to make the decision to invest that money.
That's a very, very good point. So obviously we are running a syndicate services. We're using our nominee structure for angels who want to pull other angels behind them, can do carry, can do excess fees, whatever they want. And it's interesting when I speak mostly to international investors, and I should mention I'm based in DACH, I'm based in Vienna, Austria, so I'm taking care of Germany, Austria, Switzerland primarily. Now there is a very annoying thing in these, at least in Germany and Austria, to a lesser extent in Switzerland, and that is called the notary. And if you have ever been at the notary, you know what that means. A startup investment turns into a five-hour session of being read every word in a contract that you're going to sign. And you have to show up there, right? Or you have a power of attorney that you're giving to some junior lawyer, which is what is most often done. And that's why when I'm speaking to international investors, I give them all the arguments, the advantages of the nominee that Marius just outlined. You know, the tax fiscally. The only question you have is who is going to the notary. And when I say it's us, they say that's fine, we got a deal.
You can see the relief on their face, right?
Exactly, because especially international investors, they don't understand that. It's just an outdated concept. But it's just a small tangent. Any other experiences, Mircea or Nilanjay, when it comes to these kind of things?
We did a couple of sellers, like usual companies with the sole purpose to be investing. I also needed to take care of all the nitty-gritty things, reporting as in a usual company, and I had times when I forgot, and then I needed to deal with enough with the fiscalities, and that's a hassle as well. And I'm happy we have now in European Union more option than in Romania as well. What I would stress about syndicates is a bit of the transparency part, because I think it's also quite a lot of education needed to be done by the lead investor with the other members, because in the end it's a financial investment and everyone needs to understand the terms. What are the potential exits? What are the potential problems? As lead investor, you're more like a facilitator. It's not like you take responsibility of what the startup does in the end, and you cannot influence that too much. Maybe you can help, of course, but in the end, it's the startup's thing. So all the investors need to have clarity on the setup, on the rules, on the conditions. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to deal with things that were signed a year ago when they show up unclear 1 year after or so. So I think this takes a lot of effort in creating the syndicates, to be making sure that all 15, 20 or 10 people are on the same page about all the things, especially that if you have to read 15, 20 pages contract, some people are not reading them, and then they are surprised to find out the details. So summarizing and making sure that it's clear to them, this is important. Yeah.
I remember I do like a contract summary calls with like a webinar, not a webinar, but like a video call with all the investors, saying that, hey, I have received the agreements or like the contracts from the startup. This is what are the points. These are the hidden points that you might not be able to read. And this is that. So it's like a 30 to 40 minute session going through this, and then people ask questions. And they find it quite interesting. It's like, it's crazy. Like people, when you try to do something like this, everyone joins. I've never seen any single investor not joining until it's like a emergency or something, but they always join. They stay there. You know, I'm going through the presentation that I prepared in terms of the contract, and they're waiting and seeing, and if they find anything issue or they want to give any feedback, you know, I open the panel. And this way, I think this is another way, you know, people were able to have trust on me that, okay, you know, the contracts that I'm bringing are going to be, you know, okay, and they're not going to face any challenges in the future.
Yeah, that's an important point. I mean, with all the respective disclaimers and taking liability away from you personally, I think it's something worth doing, because it's not buying a stock in a listed company. It's more tricky than that. I say we go to the last bullet points before we open the floor to the Q&A, and I'm going to ask all three of you. Is there any practical tips for building and running digital syndicates successfully? Nilanjay, we start with you, and then we go to Mircea and then Marius.
Okay, so super important thing. So I am a fan of using tools. So of course, I don't use a lot of paying tools, but for example, we maintain a Notion page, like a Notion workspace, where all my investors, whether old, active, or inactive, can access information about all the deals, not just deals related to them, but all the deals. I created like a structure wiki guide that how the syndicate operates. I've created like a structured Google Forms where, if you have a suggestion to make, you can try making it using that. A lot of people don't use it. They just directly message me, but I've built, let's say, different playbooks and structures of how the things operate. That is very super important, that from day one, if someone is joining and agreeing to, become part of our investment, I have a proper structure to onboard them in the syndicate. This way, they don't face trouble. They understand everything. And if they have any questions, they can directly check the Notion thing and stuff. Second, I think is super important is to have a dedicated, let's say, time frame given to all the investors that when are they going to receive updates about the startups, right? So I do like a quarterly reporting. I don't do monthly, even though startups share with me monthly reporting. But I wait for a quarter because it's very difficult for me to do monthly reporting to the investors. So I tell each investor that no matter which syndicate investment you have done with me, this is the date period. So usually it's the 5th to 10th of each month of the next quarter where I prepare the reports and I send them. And with each report, what I've done is that if you would like me to specifically go over the report, you can book a call with me directly, click on it, book my calendar, and we can go the report together and see if you want to have any suggestion or stuff like that, right? So this is also super important because when your investors are away, busy in their lives, they're not going to nudge you all the time that, hey, how's my investment doing and stuff like that. But if you keep on sending them consistently the reports saying that, hey, you will get the reports at this time, you have the summary, you have the overall proper report, and you have the option to contact me whenever you need to, I think they are happy in that way. So this part basically helps improves the communication. And then all these reports which I generate go back to the Notion. So let's say they want to go and fetch an old report, they can go and do via Notion. Third thing is to have virtual hours. So every month on a weekend, we have a virtual hour session where we just try to hang out with each other saying that, hey, what's happening in life, please join, meet other investors and stuff like that. So I do that every month, usually during the mid of the month, because I think that is the time when I feel people are slightly okay to do stuff because they are not really in a rush to meet their deadlines or finish stuff. So I do in the middle of the month on a weekend, asking everyone, no matter what part of the world they are from, that to join these virtual hours and meet people, just have a laugh. If there's any interesting startup or stuff they are doing, they can share. If they have any questions, they can share all those things. I call them like the investor hour, so people can join and ask whatever they want. But I think this is super important that at each point, you keep on reminding people that you are there as a lead investor to manage stuff and you are doing your job, irrespective that you're getting paid for it or not. But it's super important to have some sort of communication sending out to them on a consistent basis. It doesn't have to be daily or weekly, but monthly, quarterly, you have to show your presence that, okay, syndicate is still live, syndicate is still going. And I'm talking from a smaller syndicate perspective, not the big ones, but a smaller perspective that, people know that, yes, I'm still alive and I'm working on finding new stuff.
Cool. Mircea?
Yeah, from my side, 3 tips. I think at the beginning, the power of the group in making the decision is very important because if there are 10, 20 people interested and sharing their knowledge and different perspectives, the group decision is much better than individual. So I really love the discussion that we have after the teaching session in which we share our perspective. It can take 2 hours, but it's very insightful to hear various angles of what they've seen because they have different experiences. Second, I think, communication is important, and as the investor sharing the investor reports and so, probably they will not really get active. Sometimes they get active, sometimes they're passive, but it's in our duty to share updates or the startup founder to do it, depends on the agreement. And third is also think from the beginning about the exit scenarios for the syndicate, for the startup, but as well for the syndicate. So how is this exit happening? If there is an opportunity to buy, we need to exit all of us. Can we do some shifts in the SPV in order for the ones who want to exit and some others to stay? So this is important as well, to be imagining the scenarios until the potential end.
Yeah, I would say here something that I hope sparks a little bit, maybe a debate with the other members. I feel like the digital tools have created the impression that investing in startups is like investing in public assets, because of the ease with which you can, sometimes invest right now through different apps in publicly traded assets. And now you have a digital platform where once if you've gone through KYC, hey, there are investment opportunities, and yeah, I can go in there and just do it. I think I believe that angel syndicates create the opportunity for angels to properly learn how things are done. I think it's meaningful to test the waters maybe with a small sum that you commit, where there's maybe a lead angel involved that, somebody you might have heard of or that has a track record in technology leadership, to maybe follow and jump into those conversations as Nilanjay and Mircea were describing. Jump into those conversations and see how the decision is made, if you can contribute with expertise. So it's great that we have these digital tools. I think they're facilitating access. I think they're giving folks a learning opportunity. I would like there not to be a confusion, though. It's not the same thing as investing in public assets. And because the tool is digital, there shouldn't be this misconception that I'm going to get information with the same granularity as I can get from a public company, because it's not. If that expectation is there, that, oh, it's easy to invest because the tool is digital, that means everything is like in a public company. It's not. It isn't, and the risk is there, and people should be, clearly aware of that.
Thank you. So now that we have a couple of questions lined up from the audience, let's go through them. From which countries is it recommended for a nominee structure for the first time? That's a good question. We don't have any lawyers here, unfortunately, but anybody feels capable answering that one?
I mean, it's very difficult to answer this one because first of all, we need to understand from which country Michael is from, and then decide whether it is much for, because the way I see it is that the country which has a lot of bureaucracy and requires a lot of paperwork or notary appointments to attend, it's the one we should always avoid. So of course, Germany, like Spain, has a lot of hassle in terms of notary and stuff. So it's more about that how much, let's say, money you are willing to invest in the legal matters, right? So if you have a good legal fees that you can invest in, then maybe, yeah, you can go for any sort of nominee structure in any country. But then again, if you have a budget to operate on, then you should try to do a bit of a research and see that, okay, maybe you want to go for a platform like SeedBlink instead of, going directly, or if you want to apply an alternative method, consult a lawyer before even going that. So it's super important that consult first before you decide by yourself. It's okay to pay to the lawyer and get a confirmation that, okay, you should go via the SeedBlink route or you should go via this route. So I think the first step before deciding the country is deciding the lawyer, saying that, hey, can you consult me about this thing? And then based on the feedback, you can take the action.
I guess I would only add to that. At the end of the day, I mean, our nominees domiciled where I am in Austria, and background being that I have done this exercise a couple of times before joining SeedBlink. And also at the end of the day, it's a regulatory topic, right? So the Financial Markets Authority, the regulator, the local national bank, they will look into this one way or the other. And I mean, there's no surprise that the German one is slightly more stringent and maybe diligent, if you want, than other countries like Austria. So at the end of the day, you see where there's a blueprint, I would argue. But again, this is not a lawyer speaking, so I need to be a bit careful. The next question tackles with, in the event of a new investment round for a startup where syndicate members already invested in previously, what is the process between the lead investor for the previous round, the syndicate members, and the startup? Will the lead investor remain a lead for the new round, assuming they would like to invest and pro rata is available? That's a long question, but a good one.
I'll take that if you'll allow me. So of course, the lead investor has the responsibility to inform the rest of the syndicate about what's going on in the life of the startup, including a new round. A new round creates some opportunities, different types of opportunities. There is an opportunity to do pro rata if it's something that was negotiated from the very beginning by the lead investor and by the syndicate, in which case one would presume you continue to use the SPV you have created. I mean, it would be in case that's possible. And normally with, as far as I know, with the nominee structure, that is possible to do a follow-on in the same SPV. So most of the times this is the common case if you have pro rata. You might not have pro rata, and then it's a question of, do you negotiate a position for yourself or not? Do you do anything or not in that respective round? This is independent of what kind of vehicle you're using as an SPV. This is more of a negotiation between you and the founders and what they'll allow you to do as a syndicate. And there's the other scenario, which is, after a certain point, you'd wish for this to happen. At a certain round, the founders will come and discuss with the lead angel in that syndicate, presenting maybe an exit opportunity or a secondary opportunity, simply because the company might be in a different stage of their life, doing a new investment round where they'd like to offer the early investors an opportunity to partially or to totally cash out on their position, having supported the company up until that growth stage. In all of these scenarios, the lead investor plays a very important role. And one would assume that especially if you're being recompensated with a percentage of the carry, that you would remain lead investor of that syndicate and carry these negotiations. In case there are some life events happening for an individual and they can no longer assume the leadership level, then the correct thing to do is at the level of the syndicate to inform, to maybe have somebody else representing the group of angels in the relationship with said startup and rediscuss that, compensation piece for the lead investor up to that point. But normally, this is why lead investors are compensated, because they do carry the weight of responsibility for these negotiations as they happen.
Brilliant. The next question is, in Denmark, there's a lot of small investor protections. How do we handle that in the nominee structure? That's a good one. I mean, at the end of the day, I can speak on behalf of SeedBlink and the nominee that we handle. I mean, we are regulated entity under the ESMA eventually, so European Securities and Markets Authority, executed by the Romanian National Bank. Against that background, we have some duties towards our investors. We are, as a safeguard, treating all our investors as if they were non-sophisticated. That's a legal term. What that means is they have to go through KYC, they have to go through AML, they have to answer a couple of questions, that they only invest a certain amount of money, that they know what they're doing. So that is pretty comparable with what you might call small investor protection, unless I have misunderstood the question. I hope that clarifies it. The next one is there any limitations or conditions to join a syndicate?
Depends upon the syndicate leader, right? Because they are the ones who, define the rules for joining the syndicate. And most importantly, the only limitation is that you are aware that if you're going to invest, you can lose money. Like, the chances of losing money is quite higher than making money. So as long as the lead investor the syndicate lead understand that you have this mentality set, that, okay, you're happy and you're willingly giving to invest the money, understanding all the consequences, then I don't think so there's any other limitations. And of course, you are able to successfully complete your KYC. Of course, we don't want fraud people in the syndicate, but it's super important that everything legal related, the KYC and other stuff, is smoothly done, and then you're part of the syndicate and the deal.
I think the KYC, I would like to double click on this because it's very important, and it's being executed by SeedBlink as a platform. It's very important because becoming part of the syndicate does not mean for an individual investor that in the process of due diligence by a future investor, you're being exonerated from anything. Nobody's going to look into you. On the contrary, that future institutional investor might be a venture capital firm, might be a private equity, might be a strategic investor coming into the company. They are allowed to solicit from SeedBlink who the beneficiaries are behind that SPV. Each of them who is behind, that SPV, and what KYC has been performed. So somebody who has maybe something in their background with regards to fiscality that's not okay, or maybe that's a tax resident in a region that's maybe has sanctions, right? That is not allowed by the European Union to be somebody coming from a place, I don't know, I'm going wild here, but North Korea, right? I don't think it's possible for a North Korean to hide behind an SPV and say they're investing in European startups for reasons that I think are obvious. So it's important to highlight this. Being in a syndicate doesn't exonerate you from the KYC. It's quite in depth, and you should be aware of it.
It's KYC and AML, anti-money laundering, and it's pretty clear what the sanctioned countries are, what you can do and what you can't. That these lists change obviously over time. And this is for us a high important topic, because there's no way we can accept money, funds from a sanctioned country, from a sanctioned entity. So this is very important, because that would be a criminal offense. You can't do that. You can't do that, as well as you can't have sanctioned money buying real estate in certain European countries. It just doesn't work. Okay, and syndicates like, yeah, Mircea, sorry.
Also, I think it's important for each of us to know with whom we are co-investing, because you might be shareholder in a company, and then that might affect you later on if that person is under investigation as well. So it can escalate to that. So care about this is also important. Thanks.
So syndicates like SeedBlink have the option for members to invest in secondary markets. Does that imply that a member who buys shares, do they become a member of the SPV? Is the lead investor for the round aware of them to include them in updates and such? Yeah, this is a bit of a different topic. So how should I tackle this? Because that's a SeedBlink question. Does that mean they buy shares? Yes, they do buy shares in the secondary opportunity. So at the end of the day, they buy company shares, but these secondary companies, let's take Klarna as an example, which just IPO'd and which we had as a secondary option. Investors could buy shares indirectly in Klarna. And our nominee is holding those shares in trust. So legally, the nominee is the owner of the shares, but the beneficial owners are the investors. So at the end of the day, it's investing in a startup that is just far advanced and pre-IPO in that case. And is the lead investor in the original round aware of them? Well, technically, there's no real lead investor from our end, because we're coming in quite late to the process. So this is something that I tend to repeat as often as I can. A lot of early stage angel investors believe the kind of dream story that there will be one day this huge exit or IPO of the company they invested in a very early stage, say seed stage or so. Now, this is awesome if that happens, but honestly, this is like winning the lottery. The more realistic chances that you as an early investor will not see the exit of the company, meaning a sale or IPO of the company, you will likely go out earlier, because there will come a day when the Series B or Series C rounds, so fairly advanced with high company valuations, where the big guys, so the big VC funds, will basically buy out all the small funds and will make you quite attractive offers. And what I've seen, at least in my last 10 years or so, a lot of times investors take, obviously, this offer and get out and get some liquidity. This is important to understand, because you will not read about these secondaries a lot in the startup magazines all over the place. You read about exits, you read about IPOs, but you don't read about secondaries. And there's a lot of professional angel investors who basically do a lot of secondaries and make a lot of money of that. But feel free to add.
Basically, as a syndicate, you are actually looking, for example, in my case, where we always look to exit by Series A, Series B when the institutional investor joins in, right? Because those people offer you the money with a decent return, saying that, hey, I want to be the owner of the cap table. Can I buy your shares, right? Because they want to have the bigger piece of the pie, and because these people now have more power to take the company to the next level, because they have the connections and the stuff. So they don't want any small fish on the cap table anymore. Like, unless it's the founder, that's a different case. But if they see any syndicate, that's their first target, that, hey, let's go and buy the shares from them, and then we see what else we can do, right? So as a syndicate lead, most of the time, I think people might agree that you will always find, if a company is raising Series A, you will find the investor coming to you saying that, hey, this is the value I'm putting to your shares, which is more than what I'm putting in the round. Sorry, the value that I'm putting in the round, but do you want to sell it now or not? So it's a dilemma. Now you have to decide what to do. So you have to do a lot of calculations. You have to do your analysis. Should I have it? Should I not have it? Will this investor going to create a, let's say, problem in the future for me or not? So you have to think from a lot of perspective and then decide, okay, let's take the money now, or no, let's wait and then do it later, right? So it's a very troublesome situation for sometimes to understand.
All right. I think those were the questions. We are 3 minutes short of the hour. I guess we close it here. Quite a lively session. Cordial thanks for joining, Marius, Mircea, Nilanjay. It was a pleasure. And for all the audience members, thanks for joining as well. For the ones who didn't make it, everybody gets the recording. Have a great rest of the day, people. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
In touch. Have a good day. Bye. Thanks a lot.